Unlike other governments that don't listen to people, I've heard it loud and clear. People don't want me touching the Greenbelt. We won't touch the Greenbelt.
You say these developers aren't your friends, but one of them did attend your daughter's wedding.
That's Ontario Premier Doug Ford, going from back in 2018 saying that he will not develop the Greenbelt to now giving the Greenbelt away to his friends. Not only developing on it, but also giving it to people that support him. So a new investigation has found that Ontario's progressive conservative government, led of course by Premier Doug Ford, is as corrupt as we expected. So in this video, I will go over the new report that is just released from Ontario's Auditor General, Bonnie Lysyk. I'll get into the details. I will summarize near the beginning here this whole story because I want you to understand what went on here and what the scandal is. I will also get into how Doug Ford is defending against this, which is just beautiful. And then I will get to as well what the NDP is saying and how I don't think they're going far enough. But let me start here with what I said 8 months ago. So I covered this 8 months ago on my channel right here. You could search Doug Ford on my channel in the little search bar. Here it is. Doug Ford delivers for his wealthy donors with Greenbelt plan. I discussed what was already obvious to all of us back then. And now we have an official investigation to prove it all, including a little more specifics that we didn't know before that I will get into here. But this is the headline from the Toronto Star. Doug Ford's progressive conservatives favored certain developers in controversial Greenbelt plan. Auditor General finds in scathing report. So it is a 93-page report. Bonnie Lysyk, the Auditor General, said the Tories did not need the 15 parcels of land to achieve their promised target of building 1.5 million homes over the next decade. So we'll get to more on that in a bit, the homes defense here. But let me summarize this report before I get deeper into it, because I know there's a lot of tabs here, maybe very scary, but don't worry. We will go through it. I just want people to understand why this matters. You have a Ford government here, especially in Doug Ford, who ran on being a man of the people. For the people was his actual slogan. Doug Ford, for the people. Here he is working with his wealthy developer friends to give them land that is an estimated worth $8.3 billion in increased value. So his friends bought the land very cheaply, and that land has now increased to 8.3 or by $8.3 billion. This idea that Doug Ford was ever for the people. How many videos? I have done countless videos on Mr. Trash here. Look at this clown. It was obvious from the start. He's never been for the people. But let me calm down here. Let me grab myself. Calm down. We'll get into it. So Bonnie Lysyk here, the Auditor General, I want you to understand. This is nonpartisan. Bonnie Lysyk did the investigation into the Ontario Liberals back in 2013. This is over the gas plant cancellation costing $1 billion. So nonpartisan. She's investigated Liberals, investigated Doug Ford now. Everything in the investigation is accurate. It's just the facts. So, and it really is just telling us what we already knew. It's just confirming what I covered back in my video back 8 months ago. But it is giving us more information as well. So I will jump into that here. This is amazing. The two developers that sat at the same table for an event with the Minister of Housing, Steve Clark's chief of staff. So they're going to be central in this. Steve Clark and his chief of staff, Justin Amato, they are sort of the go-between here between the developers and what the government decided to do. So before I actually even jump into this piece, let me just, as I was going to and I forgot because I got heated, summarize this whole scandal. Okay, so the Greenbelt, in case you don't know, the Greenbelt is protected land that was established in 2005 under the Liberal government at the time. The Ford government, that has been in since 2018, I believe, created the Greenbelt project team. So this is 6 non-political public servants, and that is under Steve Clark, Doug Ford's housing minister. And they were given just 3 weeks to assess 22 sites in a bid to see which parts of the Greenbelt they should open up and develop on. And again, remember, this is after Doug Ford said he would not open up the Greenbelt. So we're already past that part where he's now decided to open up the Greenbelt. He's now decided, okay, we're going to open this up for developing. Let's figure out which sites to develop. Let's bring on these 6 non-political public servants to decide what land to open up. Well, here's the thing. The Greenbelt, this report that just came out found that at least 14 of the 15 sites that were opened up were not from the Greenbelt team, but in fact came from Steve Clark, came from their political staff. So they bring on these nonpartisans to figure out what should we open up. Oh, we're going to ignore your suggestions. We're just going to do what the staff wants to do. Where's the staff getting this information from? Oh, we'll get there. But again, 14 of the 15, at least 14 of those sites selected came from Clark's political staff, with only one potentially coming from the Greenbelt project team. The land opened up for development was largely being 92% decided by two developers. The Ford government acted on their land requests. So these two developers wanted certain sites opened up. They completely delivered what they wanted, despite the fact that 630 site removal requests had already been submitted since the Greenbelt was established in 2005. So despite the fact that there are over 600 other removal requests from the Greenbelt for development that were on the books, they ignored those and simply listened to the desires of two developers. All right, this is where we get to this here from Amar Khan, Global News reporter. The two developers that sat at the same table for an event with Minister of Housing, Steve Clark's chief of staff, Justin Amato, and gave him proposals, were given the, as I said, the 92% of the Greenbelt land. These people were at an event. These developers were at an event with Steve Clark's chief of staff. This is how they exchanged this information. This is how Amato, that he discovered through, I believe it was USB drives, discovered what land they wanted opened up. He brought these USB drives to his team, Justin Amato did, and they opened up the land. They decided, all right, let's open these parts that these developers are going to buy or they already own. Let's open up these areas. Now that investment where they bought that land initially, land was worth, several hundred million or sub 100 million. That land now increased in value by $8.3 billion. The level of corruption here is off the charts. It just gets better. On September 25th, so Global News has a big timeline here. On September 25th, the Premier's daughter, Doug Ford's daughter, his wedding is held. Photographs of the seating arrangements for the wedding include the developer for a couple of sites removed from the Greenbelt. So one of their buddies at the wedding. Oh, but Doug Ford knew nothing. Oh, just oblivious. So you're either a moron or you're corrupt. Which is it? We'll get to his defense. But as the Narwhal writes here, Narwhal also deserves a lot of credit for their investigation into this as well months ago. They write here, the owners of these lands, the report says, are set to collectively see a property value increase of nearly $8.3 billion. This comes at great environmental cost, the report says. The Greenbelt change will result in the loss of 1,000 acres of wetlands and woodlands and threaten at least 29 species at risk. So that's the environmental impact. Jessica Smith-Cross here writing, Lissick, the Auditor General, says she's had discussions with the OPP about this, the Ontario Provincial Police. Whether they pursue an investigation is up to them. We're going to see. Look, when it comes to politics, when it comes to people in powerful positions, politicians, wealthy individuals, I have very little hope that there's any repercussions ever. But maybe. I got to hold out hope for something, because what the NDP is asking for, I think, is the bare minimum. Not even the bare minimum, but we'll get there. But there should definitely be a criminal investigation into the behavior here. Now, Merritt Stiles, the NDP leader, writes here the Conservatives rigged the system to help select a few of their donors to the tune of $8.3 billion, carving up our Greenbelt against expert advice, public interest, and ethical standards. As a start, Minister Clark must resign. I mean, look, I'm sure Merritt Styles, very nice. She seems very nice. I'm going to play a clip in a second. Seems very nice. Asking Minister Clark to resign is not even the bare. That should be a given. Like, of course, yes, of course, resign. You should be asking for Doug Ford to resign. You should be asking for a criminal investigation. And look, to be fair, maybe she is. I haven't seen the full statements from the NDP, but, you know, in a tweet like this, the first reaction to this should be asking, I think, for a hell of a lot more than just the minister to resign. But let me get to Merritt Styles and what she said, her reaction to this report.
Decisions that the Auditor General has made very clear do not serve the interests of Ontarians. That, to me, smells of corruption, and I think we need to call it that. And again, if the government wants to come out and defend what happened and say, no, we just didn't know, we're just that incompetent. I mean, this is the premier of this province. And as I read it, he also shared this. This was his request of his minister in the mandate letter, which, by the way, I will point out, they have yet to share. In fact, they're going to court to try to prevent people from reading their mandate letters. Well, here's why. Because this speaks to, you know, who's actually needs to be held account for this government's decisions and what their real plan is for Ontario.
Should the housing minister's chief of staff be fired?
Should the housing minister's chief of staff be fired? Yes. I'm going to go further. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the minister himself who needs to be fired. He should have done the right thing from day one when we started asking these questions, because we've been asking these questions, right? We've been asking the government to explain why. So if they say that they didn't know, why didn't they know? How is it that for month after month after month, after we were asking questions, after you were asking questions, they didn't know the answers? Come on. We know somebody knew something, and if they didn't, if they had to have, what is it they call it, a plausible deniability, why? Why? Because they knew something didn't smell right.
All right, so that's the reaction from the NDP leader. Merritt Styles was fine. She seems nice. I just wish there was, I don't know, more anger there. I understand it's often what I want to see isn't necessarily what is politically advantageous for someone to do, but I do think there needs to be more urgency here. There needs to be a showcase of, like, what the F? Like, how can you allow this corrupt leader to continue in power? Like, there has to be more. People need to understand how big of a deal this is. People need to feel that that they were effed with. But I don't get that from the NDP leader. I don't get that generally from any opposition against Ford. Like, it's just, there needs to be more. We need more from our politicians. We need them to act how we feel, because oftentimes I think they're too careful with their wording. And again, I understand this is how it's been historically. They have to be that way, but it's a new era now. You have to be a true representation of the people, not just in your actions, but also in your rhetoric. And I haven't seen that yet. But I don't know. I'm glad she's saying something. So this is what they're asking for here from Colin DeMello, Global News. The NDP are calling for the housing minister, Steve Clark, to be sacked. Again, not even the bare minimum. This is, of course, yes. And recall the legislature to reverse the decision. So, yes on both. How about also, and look, maybe there's more now. This was 11 a.m. Maybe there's more now. But how about also, Doug Ford needs to go. There needs to be a criminal investigation. Like, there needs to be more here. This is not enough from the NDP in my mind. Let's get now to some more specifics here from the Narwhal. So they write, according to the report, when the Greenbelt project team said that eight of the initial sites could not be opened because they were sensitive agricultural lands. Again, remember, the Greenbelt project team is the nonpartisan people. The chief of staff asked them to stop considering environmental and agricultural factors. Similarly, when the Greenbelt project team determined that 8 of the 22 sites could not be open for development because they were in the middle of the Greenbelt, isolated from services and amenities, the chief of staff asked for changes to make the sites eligible. That meant expanding the boundaries of at least 2 sites to be closer to existing built-up areas so they could be open for construction. So, to summarize here, so you understand, the areas that these developers wanted opened up didn't make political sense because they were like in the middle of the Greenbelt. So instead, they expanded even further to the end of the Greenbelt so that it could seem natural. Oh, of course, yes, we're expanding from the edge of the Greenbelt here all the way into the Greenbelt where the developers actually wanted. But they had to do that to make it appear that this wasn't just like particular sites picked out of the middle of the Greenbelt. So they actually increased how much land they opened up for development simply to meet the needs of these developers. Man, are you angry yet? Because you should be. It feels like there's not enough anger here from the opposition. Quote, rather than having the Housing Ministry Public Service... Sorry, let me read this again. Rather than having the Housing Ministry's Public Service conduct a rigorous and comprehensive assessment of Greenbelt boundary change requests, as had been done in 2017, as part of a scheduled and coordinated overview or review of Ontario's land use plans, the government embarked on a project, the Greenbelt project, that was substantially controlled and directed by the Housing Minister's Chief of Staff. So again, I discussed that, but I want to point this out because, you know, some people say, well, they're all corrupt. Not just Doug Ford, the NDP, the Liberals, they're all corrupt. The other parties didn't do this. They followed. They used the proper procedure to address Greenbelt boundary change requests, as had been done prior to the government. The Ford government in 2017. Once Ford came in 2018, no longer were they following this process because, again, they were serving these particular friends of Doug Ford. So this isn't, you know, oh, they're all corrupt. No, Doug Ford is corrupt. More here from the Narwhal. They're number 3. So they break down, you know, several points from the report. Anyone who knew about the Greenbelt site selection process was bound by confidentiality agreements. So they purposely muzzled anyone who knew anything so that they couldn't talk about it. Does that sound transparent to you? Doug Ford, for the people. Shut the fuck up. Don't say anything. Doug Ford, for the people. Like, it's just... Oh, God. I can't stand these phony-ass politicians. The public affected municipalities and Indigenous nations were not adequately consulted. So again, not going through the proper process, proper procedures. The people that should have been consulted were not consulted. Let's go to Doug Ford's defense because it is so goddamn stupid.
It's never been more important to deliver on our commitment to build at least 1.5 million homes. Failing to act would worsen the housing supply and affordability crisis.
You say these developers aren't your friends, but one of them did attend your daughter's wedding. And just days later, a lawyer representing him emailed Minister Clark's chief of staff requesting that 3 properties be removed from the Greenbelt, and they were removed. So you're telling us it's a coincidence that he knew to ask just the right person at just the right time to remove these properties from the Greenbelt?
Well, no one knew. No conversation ever was discussed. I can guarantee you that. I found out the day before, on the day of, when we went to cabinet, which happens frequently. It happens all the time. Here's the briefing. This is what we're bringing to cabinet. And I have to have confidence. I don't believe in micromanaging.
Bro, the developer was at your daughter's wedding. There is an email with specifics asking, hey, I want this, and this opened up. And it was opened up. You're trying to tell us that you didn't know anything. That no one knew anything. There were no discussions at all. We just decided on this is the land that's being opened up. Oh, I'm premier. I just discovered which land's being opened up the day of. You are either corrupt or the dumbest man on the planet. I think it's a bit of both. Actually, it's a lot of both. Clown. Absolute clown. Couple last things here. Narwhal writes, Ontario had enough land to build on, and there was no evidence that opening up the Greenbelt would increase housing supply. So his other defense are, we need homes. Ontario's get a lot of people coming in Ontario. We need to build them homes. Because there's one thing we know with Doug Ford. He cares about housing people. Not a single homeless person in Ontario. He cares about housing. He wants to house people that need homes. So we must destroy the Greenbelt when all experts say, no, there's plenty of other land that can be developed on that is not part of the Greenbelt. We didn't need to destroy the Greenbelt. But he's like, oh, no, we need these homes. And just happens to be my friends own this land, and that land now worth increased $8.3 billion. But that's just an aside. Who cares about that? No, we need this Greenbelt opened up to build these homes. Forget the land that we can build on already. Give me a goddamn break. Last thing here. Colin DeMello summarized this well. To recap, the chief of staff who received packages from developers and then sped up Greenbelt removals on their behalf keeps his job. His boss, the Minister of Housing, keeps his job. The premier who approved the land swaps keeps his job. Colin DeMello, I appreciate you because you're exposing here how ridiculous all of this is without directly saying it. This is completely absurd that these people all keep their jobs. Look, this is the first 12 hours. We're going to see what comes out of this. Maybe there's a criminal investigation. I would love that. Maybe there is, resignations. The only way any of that happens is if the pressure is kept on this Ford government.